Oh yeah, this is Sci-Fi Snob, and this is the Toplofty Lounge. We're in for a smooth show for you today. Oh yeah, baby. In 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, baby. Yeah, here we go. In 11, 10, 9. Oh yeah, baby. Here we come. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think I had myself muted for that introduction. All right, welcome to the Top Lofty Lounge. Just a little technical difficulty there.
All right,
welcome. Starting strong. Welcome. We're going to tonight. We got a controversial, difficult show for you. We're going to talk about the Last Jedi, and Cam is going to save it. Can you believe it? But first, we have to have our little mandatory chit chat. How are you doing tonight, Cam?
Right.
Tired from all your research you've been doing?
Yeah, this has been more miserable and unfulfilling than I expected.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we'll see. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I can please just one person.
Maybe you can. I'd love to be pleased.
Right.
Well, to be honest, I have been pleased. Our local sports ball team won their match tonight. It was very close. They are advancing to the Super Cup or something. It's called. Yeah. I'm up here in northern Alberta, so the Edmonton climate change deniers beat the Dallas Sunspots or something like that. Won game 6 out of 7, so that they won 4, and the other team won 2. So they're moving on next Saturday. It's the big deal.
Excellent.
So, all right, okay. So, what about you? Anything that just tired from? He's been Cam's been working on this a long time. He's got pages and pages of notes. He tells me so. That's what you've been doing all week. Is that correct?
The worst part of it is I had to watch The Last Jedi again.
You had to watch The Last Jedi. Yeah, that's a tough one. I watched a little bit of. I watched some of Mahler's, review of it, so it was a little bit tough for me too. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
A quick note that's one thing I didn't do. I didn't really watch anyone else's critiques or thoughts on it at all. I did it, when the movie first came out, years ago, but I hadn't seen it since 2017 until just this week. So I'm kind of trying to isolate myself from other direct influences.
Right on. We have we didn't get our special guest in last week, so Cam promised a special guest. He organized a special guest. He got it all set up. He apparently they couldn't make it last week, so we brought him in for the special guest this week, and he didn't tell me who it was. So I was guessing that it was Leonard Nimoy, but I don't think. Oh, wait a second, hold on here. Before we bring in the special guest here, Jason's popped in. I'm going to add Jason in. Hello, Jason. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you. So, Jason, you're probably just dying to know who the special guest that Cam brought in. I think it's Mark Hamill, personally, but yeah, I'm not sure. So, do you want to reveal that, Cam? I don't.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
You don't? Oh, well, all right. I know special guest. Okay. So, but Jason's here. We like to.
Jason's special. He's special to us.
We like to honor Jason because he's he kind of set us up on this journey a little bit. So we're going to try to squeeze as much as we can out of him as possible. Yeah, he's got the super all 7 or 6 or 12 monitors or whatever.
Right. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7.
You can never have too many.
It may still not be enough.
For this, maybe not. Now, even though Cam couldn't bring in a special guest, I was able to get a special guest. I was going around the internets, and I latched onto the disgruntled Jedi popped up in my feed, and he seems to have similar problems to the present case of Star Wars that we have. Disgruntled, do you want to say something? Introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sweet. I've never used a setup like this, so hi.
Welcome.
Right on. Welcome. So, so I just thought I'd pull in as many people as possible to pile onto Cam and challenge him in his in the topic of today, which is the The Last Jedi, salvaging the unsalvageable. Can Cam do that? Now, Cam claims that he has a way that he can, quote, fix The Last Jedi. But now we're not just going to go in there and we're not going to just change everything and just, make a whole new movie, because that would just be too easy. Everyone would do that, right? So, Cam, you want to explain what your limitations were on this little project?
Sure. So first of all, I'm assuming that The Force Awakens stands as is. I'm not changing anything that happened there. I'm not changing anything that happened in any of the other Star Wars movies, obviously. I am basically ignoring all of any extraneous material. So we're treating only the movies as canon here. And not really dealing with anything else. I guess if I was to expand this, I would treat other Lucas-based shows like Clone Wars and things as canon, but I don't think it's going to come up in relation to what we're doing here tonight.
Okay, so just once again, very quickly, you're taking what's been given, and you're going to make it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to wholesale change the movie. Actually, I'm trying to keep as much of it intact as possible, because the challenge here is really to say that this is a movie that didn't have to suck. It could have basically done much of the same things, and if they didn't make stupid anti-fan choices, it could have been a decent movie. I have to admit there's certain parts of it that's, were really difficult. And maybe if we could go around a little bit before I start, I'm sure everyone can point out a few things that it's like that were just very unacceptable to them, that made them hate this movie. And certainly I hope to, address at least those big things.
All right, well, let's go with Jason and then Disgruntled, and then just tell us very quickly what your impression of the movie was, your feelings about The Last Jedi.
Oh, I hated it.
Me too.
Do you want to expand on that a little? Or
I hated all of it. I hated the characterization, the arc they had for Skywalker. Rian Johnson clearly demonstrated that he did not have any idea what made Star Wars, and he forgot that he was making Act 2 of a 3-act play. And as we've learned later from J.J. Abrams, there was no plan going into this. So, it's disjointed compared to everything else. The cinematography is great. It's a very pretty movie. But other than that, and John Williams' score, the rest of it is just crap. I cannot think of any redeeming qualities whatsoever with this. It disrespected the Finn character. It disrespected the Poe character. I mean, they start off with a your mama joke. I mean, and it just goes downhill from there. It's garbage. I've seen it once, and I never want to see it again.
So what are your thoughts about Cam's chance of success of making saving this, salvaging it? What do you
I mean, if there are pieces to excise and cut out, then I'm curious, kind of the same way you'd be curious when you drive by a car wreck on the highway or something. I don't know that there's anything salvageable in terms of maintaining The Last Jedi as a movie, but there might be bits and pieces that you can put together and cobble together into some kind of a Frankenstein story that maybe could serve as an Act 2 in this overall arc that Abrams finally came up with.
All right, keeping expectations low. I like it.
Very low, very low. I mean, you're facing a very daunting challenge here, Cam. I mean, if I was to spend a whole lot of time, then I could probably think of some places where you could make some judicious cuts and whatnot. But yeah, and I'm curious to see where you end up doing some of that. I would completely take out the Canto Bite stuff right from the beginning. But you know, this is your show, so you have your own thing there.
All right.
All right, disgruntled. What about you?
Oh, Last Jedi was, the best movie ever made. 10 out of 10, completely. There's nothing else even remotely close to that film. It's just cinematic perfection, and there's absolutely no reason to sit here and try to fix it. You're all just disgruntled nerds. So,
This is
Incels.
this is actually this show is actually called Point Counterpoint. So it's two different sides of each. And
No.
and Cam's chance of being successful in this endeavor must be 100% since it's already a perfect movie, right?
No, I mean, it's a perfect movie. Anything you change would just destroy it even further. So, I mean, you can't mess with perfection. Being serious, the movie is, I actually think it could be saved. It depends. If you remove a lot of without giving too much aid to Cam and his attempts here, if you pull out Ryan Johnson's humor and you reframe all of his gotchas to instead be, middle fingers to the fans, and instead be something that we would want to see, the movie is salvageable. It has a very basic, very almost grade school level plot setup because it was written by somebody with the brain of a grade schooler. But that kind of thing can work just fine. It's just you had somebody who set out to play with somebody else's toys specifically to be like, you like this toy? Well, I'm going to light it on fire, and do that repeatedly for 2 hours. So I think it could be salvaged. I'm not sure how much the original product would be left. Maybe the title screen, but
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're disgruntled Jedi. You're kind of keying in on some of the path I'm going to be taking there. And in regards to aid and such, you have my word of honor that as we have little bits of discussion here, I will state what my ideas were and so if you happen to say something, and if you come up with something different, I will acknowledge that. So. I won't try and say, "Oh yeah, I did that," if I didn't really do that, because it's all about the challenge. So, um,
Jedi brings up a good point, and it's Windows. Quit messing with my microphone. I think
never.
one of the more frustrating things for me is knowing that this was a first draft script, and they just started shooting it without any revisions, and I'm like, how do you do that? How does somebody in charge of Lucasfilm let that go like that? It's ridiculous to me.
let
Not
alone
even.
completely ignoring the first movie.
Right.
But
Exactly.
my show notes for this show are all first draft, and they're going to be awesome. So I don't see that as such a bad thing. Now, as for my own personal opinion, I think Last Jedi is probably one of the worst movies ever written, and you couldn't write I don't see how you could write a worse movie if you tried. And most of the problems for me are with the script and the writing. I agree with Jason. Cinematography's great, score's fine, but the movie is just garbage. It doesn't make sense. You trip over themselves multiple times. I honestly don't see how Cam can save this. So I'm very interested to see how's he gonna try and save this.
Well, if you clip everything after, episode 8.
Okay, so
I'm now look, before we get started though, we have to put a couple ground rules on. So we've put what Cam's going to do. So we're going to try to do. We want interaction, but Cam has mentioned. We've been talking about this. Cam's mentioned that you kind of need to see the whole thing before his whole plan, before you can sort of, because you might say, oh, what about this? What about that? And then, he'll address it later on. But so what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to keep our major points of discussion till the end, but he's going to go through a scene. He's going to quickly describe, in 20 seconds, the old scene. So everybody knows what we're talking about. And then how he's going to change it. And if you have some questions or something, we can throw it in. But we're going to try to save the majority of arguments to the end.
Yeah. So
such
so
as
at
they
the
are.
right at the end of each scene, I want to at least give you guys a chance to just say if you have anything that you want to confirm or not. The thing that I can't do is if you start to kind of get ahead of me, my only answer will be, well, you'll have to wait and see. But if you need any clarification on what is or isn't in that scene, that'd be a good time to ask. All right.
Sounds good. Cam, you want to get us anything else? Any last questions before we get started? No? All right. Let's go for it.
Okay. Opening scene. Well, the crawl, I don't do anything with that. So opening scene is the evacuation from Dakar by the Resistance as the First Order comes in. This scene is largely going to be kept intact. So there's a few exceptions I'll go over now. So and I'm going right to the exceptions because again the main thrust of this scene is the same. So the First Order is here commanded by Hux directly, as it was in the original. He has his there's just his Star Destroyer here, and maybe a few support ships. Leia's fleet is the Raddus, which is the Mon Calamari cruiser, and 4 other support ships. I think the original one had just 2. So I actually like this scene in the original, where they're running from the base. Lieutenant Connix, I think, which is Carrie Fisher, played by Carrie Fisher's daughter. She's kind of the officer leading the evacuation. They're coming out on transports, and then originally, Poe is kind of fighting. So in my version, it's more of we're getting right into a larger fight, dogfight. Poe is leading the Resistance squadron. I might say Rebel and Resistance interchangeably in here, but the good guys squadron, as the First Order fighters are harassing the escaping ships. And then in the midst of this, as they're fighting to get boarded onto the Raddus, the Dreadnought comes in at this point. So it was a little different. I think the Dreadnought was there originally. The Dreadnought being the large ship commanded by the other officer. And so Hux, orders them immediately to fire on the base because that's where that was their initial target. And then so Poe, again leading this attack, shifts to the attack on the Dreadnought, which then brings in the bombers. And then the rest of this plays out mostly the same. Again, a denser battle is what I'm picturing here, and the bombers being less ridiculously made of paper and being obliterated with one hit from a TIE fighter or something. So a little bit more robust battle takes place, but it basically goes through the same thing. Poe does ignore Leia's order to retreat as they So in the original, she when they got the last transports on board, she said retreat and come back, and Poe ignored her, going after the Dreadnought. So that still does happen, and again, the rest plays out pretty much the same with the final bomber, with Paige, having her moment where she drops the bombs. I'm not attempting to change the whole thing about the bombs and such. We can, you can have some technical stuff about them being gravimetric or magnetic or whatever you want there. So I'm not trying to get too much into the weeds there. And then scene ends with the Raddus jumping into hyperspace. So pretty basic scene. The notable change is as Jason already referenced, I'm getting rid of the childish prank call stuff with Hux and Poe. And just generally as a note here, I'm not trying to make Hux into a clown. Hux is going to be portrayed throughout this as a capable and ruthless leader. So, keeping those characterizations a little less silly.
So basically the same. You take out the mom jokes.
Point of order. I don't remember half of that in that first scene. I remember the bombers. I remember the space battle, but I don't remember that they were already in the midst of an evacuation of a base. I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, they started out right at the beginning with them. Lieutenant Connex was like, "Oh, leave this behind. Let's just get the personnel loaded up and running out." I thought it was actually a really good start to the movie.
Yeah.
But it happened relatively quickly too. And again, they spent more time on the idiotic banter with Poe and Hux than dealing with the space scene. And like I said, the bombers were just eliminated almost immediately.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, the Last Jedi starts where the Force Awakens ends. Basically, zero time has passed, and they're evacuating the base. Yeah. So
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple other problems in those scenes. I think that's probably the main problem, but yeah, it's the ridiculous mom jokes calling. Poe calls up and says, "Hey, Huck says, he calls Huck's names and said I don't know, I can't remember, he's stinky or something like that." And, he says, "I'll never negotiate with you." Okay, whatever. Like, he's just trying to gain some time or something. It's kind of, yeah, it's pretty lame.
Well, in its own right, if they did it right, if the wording of it was better, it could have been fine. But it came across as like Hux has no idea what's going on. Like somebody has to tell him he's being trolled.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, okay, I understand that Star Wars doesn't have Twitter, but come on, you're supposed to be a military general. Figure it out, dude.
Well, just think, I mean, what you can do is, and as I said, I watched Mahler, and he mentions this. He goes, just replace Hux with Tarkin. And what would Tarkin what would Tarkin have done? He would have said, blow up the ship. He wouldn't have listened. So I mean, it's just they're clowning on Hux right off the bat. But anyway,
alternately, there was, I don't remember what it was. I caught it in passing. It was a Batman cartoon. It was one of the Batman Beyond ones where Joker takes over. I want to say it's actually Dick Grayson's body, but he's like, I don't know, older or whatever. And Joker's being Joker and just bantering. And Batman tells the new Batman to just ignore him. He's like, ignore him. He likes to talk. And the new Batman's like, wait a minute, I like to talk. That could have been a really good spot for there to be this banter going back and forth where he's poking fun at Poe just as much as Poe is poking fun at him. But between those comments, muting it and giving his, underlings instructions and things like that. It could have been a really good scene to watch him do two things at once, but they completely bypassed that.
I would agree with that, except in order for that to work, at least for me as a writer, in order for that to work, we would have to have already established some kind of history between Hux and Poe in order for it to really sell. That these guys, it's like it's like Batman and the Joker, or Doctor and the Master. There's a comfortable, there's a comfort level that goes from, banter comes from being comfortable with somebody, and even if it's the enemy, and that implies that there's a history, and we don't get any impression that they have any kind of a history at all in this. But yeah, it could have worked with that, but you'd need to have something that would establish that Poe and Hux have known each other for a while somehow to really sell it, I think.
To a point, I would agree. But it could have been a little bit more like Anakin and Grievous. They knew of each other. Poe in Force Awakens is listed as being the best pilot in the Resistance. Kylo knows this. So why wouldn't Hux? So as soon as Poe introduces himself and starts poking fun at Hux, Hux knows Poe by his reputation the same way Poe knows Hux.
Yeah, I think there's good points that, and again, I just eliminated it, but that they could have made something out of it. They could have made it less stupid and more of, a rivalry of some sort, or, set that up for some use later on. But yeah, so interesting.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the next?
Yep. Next scene in the original is with Snoke and the hologram, and again humiliating Hux, and then moving into discussion with Kylo and Snoke. So my version is eliminating the Hux thing completely. Again, the idea here is that Hux is fully capable of commanding things, and he doesn't need Snoke micromanaging him. So the scene is with Kylo coming to talk to Snoke. So Snoke here is, and again, there's a few notes that I'm going to have to make and just tell you things because I can't portray them, obviously, so I have to tell and not show. But the idea here is Snoke is being manipulative. It's supposed to be showing his manipulative side and his relationship with Kylo, which is alternating between kind of taunting him and flattering him. And Kylo, the discussion is very much the same. Kylo is shown as being a little bit more of eager to please Snoke here, kind of like he was in The Force Awakens, and continuing that. So in the scene, Snoke tells Kylo that he's being assigned to turn Rey. He's aware of this connection that they had. In the original, they mentioned this somewhat later, I think, this connection. But in my story, I'm taking it from the point where the interrogation of the Force Awakens happened, where Kylo was digging into her mind, and so there's some lasting connection there. So that communication line between them that is used in the original is going to remain here. So that's what Snoke is referencing. And I'm also kind of hearkening back to The Empire Strikes Back in the conversation with the Emperor and Vader, where Vader actually suggests that, we could turn Skywalker and he would be useful to us. It's kind of reversed here, where Snoke's basically saying, we need, or we want her on our side, and and his job is to turn her to the dark. And Snoke also alludes to the fact that Rey will be Kylo's reward, and this is also, again, this would be portrayed on screen. It's supposed to be portrayed as being creepy because, there's a reason we'll see from that. But the point is that this is supposed to be pretty nefarious. It's like they're talking about luring a young girl to be used for their own purposes. So it's meant to be kind of a dark and ugly thing here. In terms of the general tone, whereas in the original one, Snoke was very dismissive and hostile towards Kylo, and like I mentioned, this one, it's more manipulative and a little more subtle, and I'm trying to portray the nature of that relationship between those two. And also, Kylo is on board with Snoke's depraved, suggestions going on here, and he's not portrayed as resisting them. It's these two are in line with each other. So,
that's a little more in line with sort of the Vader and Palpatine thing we see in like Empire.
Yes, I'm trying to harken back to. I'm trying to bring up that kind of feel.
Yeah, and embarrassing your, humiliating your people in your military who are just under you. It's not never a great idea. Vader didn't do it. He just threatened them to do a better job, and if they failed, he just killed them. Right. But he didn't humiliate them. So I'm up, and like you mentioned, I'm avoiding degrading Hux here and making him into a clown yet again. So yeah, I mean, I've said this before. If you make your villains clowns, then you take away from the hero when the hero finally defeats them, because the audience goes, well, the guy was a clown anyway. Big deal. You beat a clown. So, you want to make them as menacing as possible so that it means something when they're defeated.
Okay. Any comments from Jason or Disgruntled?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No, I like the idea that you have going with it. Anything that makes First Order look semi-competent is going to be an improvement.
Okay. Let's go on to scene 3 then. This one is I'm jumping to Octo at this point. So It's a little bit out of order. I think the original we had a scene with where we went to Finn, so I'm skipping that for the moment. So
Yeah,
this
there's.
is.
Oh yeah, okay. Go ahead. I was gonna say that's Finn. Finn gets out of the thing. He finds that he's like he's been in a coma for a day. He's leaks the water and stuff like
Right.
that kind of stuff. So
Right.
you're gonna skip that. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So okay, we're on Octo and taking off almost exactly where it left off from Force Awakens. Now, there's one thing about this and that I'm not really trying to address, but I think the timelines of some of this might be off, or at least not clear in the original. So I'm trying to, keep it a little tighter in this. So that's just kind of a side note. Okay, so Octo, in this version, Luke seems to recognize Rey. He doesn't go into it, but he does say, "Why are you here?" And he holds obviously the lightsaber that Rey, hands him at the end of Force Awakens, not the infamous throwing away scene. Rey, kind of quickly explains that what has happened with the First Order and Snoke and what they did to the Republic, and that she's Leia has sent her, and she's here to they need Luke's help, and also what's happened to Han and such. Luke is shaken by this a bit, crestfallen, obviously bad news he doesn't want to hear, and Rey just kind of naively says, "Well, come with me. We'll fight them together," kind of thing. She has kind of a simplistic view of things. Luke says he can't, and again he's a bit shaken by this, and that he had to come here. I didn't work out dialogue for this. But basically, he had to come here to save everyone else, and then he just kind of glosses over that a little bit, and then he moves into saying that Rey, you are in great danger. You shouldn't be, or I'm sorry, you are in grave danger, because he senses that she. Well, clearly he knows something about her, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So then. There's some things not being said here, but the narration, I guess it was behind the scenes, is Luke understands that she has some sort of force powers here, recognizes her, and she's not where she's supposed to be, aka where he put her. And we'll get to that in a little bit here. So Luke, basically this scene ends with Luke saying, "Come with me," and then he heads off on the island. So that's where that scene ends. So it's kind of a brief interlude, and obviously the tone is a little different here, as opposed to Luke being dismissive and just get out of here. It's more portrayed that Luke understands that her being here is of significance, and he's concerned about it, as well as being concerned about what hearing the news of what has happened to his dear friend Han, and that Leia's in trouble, and that the Republic is basically destroyed.
So, so he's not on Octo waiting to die.
Doesn't seem to be. He explains that he is here for that. Obviously, this is one of the big sticking points. Is why did Luke? I went into before I saw The Last Jedi. I said to my friends and such. I said, we have to have a good explanation for why Luke is hiding, and I'm starting to lay the groundwork for that here. That he's explaining that it would be more dangerous if he wasn't here. So, again, this is kind of starting to play out here, so you won't have all the answers, but I'm just kind of giving you a preview of where we're going.
So in some of this stuff, besides just cutting and editing, you're also rewriting a little bit.
Absolutely. I'm not trying to wholly discard it and do a whole different story, and there's not enough pieces there for me to just remove and make it good. So yes, I am rewriting. So imagine this at the script level being fixed, let's say.
Gotcha.
So you're writing a second draft, is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Editing the first draft.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big sticking point with the movie anyway. Why is Luke? Why did Luke go in this place to die? He says he's there to die. Why is he there? Why did he leave a map for himself if he wants to die? And why is he taking so long to die? Is he just waiting? Why doesn't he just kill himself? Be done
You're
with
thinking about this way, way harder than they did.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't have a problem with, okay, like let's give Luke a reason to be on this island. I mean, that makes sense. Like, I'm good with that.
It's fishing.
Yeah, and
He was there for fishing.
Fishing in blue milk,
Yeah, clean that one up.
green milk,
blue or
Yeah,
green, whatever it is.
it's green in this movie.
even worse. All right, you want to move on?
Sure.
Okay, so let's see. For the original, so okay, so I'm kind of combining the Poe scene and then the one that follows here. But basically, we're back at the Radis, and that's the thing is most of this structure, the whole, as Disgruntled Jedi said, is it's a rather simplistic storyline, and so the main storyline, as I see it, is this whole chase with the First Order and the Radis. So that's really, things will just keep coming back to that, and the other things are more like interludes. So the main story is following the Resistance fleeing. Okay, so we're back back at the with the Radis, and so they've arrived at a rally point. As opposed to not seeming to have much of a plan, they clearly do. The fleet drops out of hyperspace at the rally point. Admiral Akbar, who is in charge of the Radis, reports to Leia that they've arrived and that there's a fuel resupply ship waiting here for them. They've basically coordinated this. Presumably they knew what their fuel situation was and they arranged for this. So this is they're executing their plan. And so Akbar turns to address control the fleet and get that going. This is the scene that we flash to. Finn is coming out of med bay. That scene I skipped before, I'm kind of inserting here, and as opposed to, again, more jokey nonsense with water squirting out, or Bacta or whatever it is squirting out of the suit. He's just been patched up, and he's coming out. He runs into Poe on the way out. On the way there, Poe is going to report to Leia on the bridge. This scene is similar in that Leia is dressing him down very severely because he disobeyed orders. They've suffered significant losses because of it. Poe argues his case that this dreadnought, we had to stop it. It would have fired on the ships and destroyed them. So it's Leia is very definitely being harsh on him, but he's not portrayed quite as much as just a reckless person that's disregarding everything. It's that he saw things different and was trying to do what he saw was best. But the same general sense is there. Okay, in the midst of this, or Leia mentions that he has a lot to learn about leadership, and then as this is going on, C-3PO, who is generally on the bridge in the original and such, he a little bit of background. In some supplemental material, I said I wasn't going to use it much, but C-3PO was kind of like the intelligence chief, was supposed to be handling all of that. So C-3PO on the bridge here, he reports that there's a unauthorized transmission from somewhere on their ship. At that point, First Order ships, 3 First Order ships now come in, whereas before there was just Hux and the Dreadnought. The Dreadnought was incapacitated. 3 ships come in, and they're approaching. Quick discussion ensues here with consulting with 3PO, and Leia realizes they have a spy on board who has set their location to the First Order, who is now dropped on top of them. Leia, instead of demoting Poe, she says, "You're in charge," and orders him, your responsibility is the protection of the fleet. Poe kind of accepts that and goes to deploy the squadron. And then Leia goes off to deal with what looks to be a traitor, someone who's on the ship. C-3PO basically reports, okay, yeah, they were here, and they've got some sort of internal sensors or something that can is tracking this person is moving. So Leia takes off. Finn joins her. and a few troopers, and they're going to go try and deal with this traitor, or who, a spy, whatever it is. And then the scene kind of plays out. It's going back and forth between this space battle that's beginning, and then them tracking down the traitor. So the space battle portion begins now. Akbar is moving the Radis to try and cover the other smaller ships, and the refueling ship. And then the Star Destroyers are moving in, launching fighters. Poe puts Lieutenant Tally was the A-wing pilot from the original one. She was in the first battle, and then, well, she got blown up in the in the hangar at about this point next time. But so he's now the command. He's the Air Wing commander now, so he's remaining on the bridge, and so he appoints her the leader for the squadron. So then they go out and they start dealing with the fighters, and then we shift back inside. C-3PO, like I mentioned, has located the source of the transmission, and the Leia's squad here, security squad, is going to intercept. 3PO reports that he's heading towards the escape pod bay, and as they're approaching the door to the place, they see someone crossing the hall or the passage. They open the door to pursue. Leia says stop him. As they zero in on where he went, he's kind of turned the corner, so he's off screen right now. And then they come around. I'm trying to describe kind of what you're seeing with the camera here. So they come around to where the escape pods are, and as they're doing so, they hear blaster goes off, and they come around and they see the spy on the ground dead, and Rose Tico there holding the blaster. She mentioned she was working maintenance down here. She heard stop him, blah blah blah. There was a tussle that ensued. She got the better of it and was able to shoot him. I had a silly joke here that they look at his ID and see that it's Matt the radar technician, which is a joke referring to Kylo being on Saturday Night Live, but that's just a little silly side note. I probably wouldn't actually put that in the actual thing. But then we shift back to the space battle, and it's really kind of at this point focusing on the capital ships with Akbar, positioning the fleet, deploying it. And as you may recall from the original, the Radis had some special shield systems. So Akbar is using that, to the best of his advantage, as the Star Destroyers are starting to hammer them and cover the other ships. Unfortunately, they have too much. They're overwhelmed and they've got too much force. They lose the refueling ship. Sorry, I got to check my notes real quick. And one of the other smaller ships that they had arrived with, the Radis. In this scene, this is where Kylo originally attacked and blew up the bridge. So instead of that happening, what we have is the fighters getting through partially and able to get to the point where instead of blowing up the hangar bay, they're able to take out the hyperdrive system on the Radis. So they're not able to jump to hyperspace. So at this point, Poe again is commanding from the bridge the starfighters, and they're taking some losses. At this point, you're seeing some of Poe's friends from Black Squadron and Force Awakens die in here. He's getting casualty reports as this going on, and Akbar orders the fleet to run at sublight speed. Again, this is keeping the part that they had superior sublight maneuverability and speed, so they're fleeing now. But they haven't refueled. They're in dire straits. And the one note on this is the bombardment of the Radis from the Star Destroyers continues. In the original Hux was like said something like, don't let them forget we're here, or remind them we're here, or something. So throughout, they're bombarding them, and the shields are getting hit. So there's kind of the idea is that there's this constant pressure building. They're under constant attack, and you know, so the viewer is seeing that the situation is very dangerous.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
I was going to say. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the notable changes I've got at this point. Obviously the bridge isn't destroyed. The hyperdrive on the Radis gets destroyed, so they can't run. There's no Space Leia.
What?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, come on.
There is no Holdo. There is no. I'm sorry. There is the low fuel storyline is kind of maintained here, and it's also made clear here that Hux is the main enemy in this storyline. He's the commander of the First Order team that's hunting them down, and he is not. Again, this is the third point I'm trying to make. Redeem him, that he is not incompetent. He is expertly running this attack, and wearing them down as this goes. So that's kind of where that scene ends.
Yeah, I like I think bringing in a fuel ship that makes the resistance, or whatever they're calling themselves, a little bit more intelligent, that they planned on refueling. They didn't just run out of fuel, and if it gets blown up, then hey, that makes sense. Or having their hyperspace destroyed, that makes sense. I would actually say, though, that I think that Kylo, sorry, not Poe, is he's being made. He shouldn't even be. Throughout the movie, he's the only guy that makes any reasonable decisions about anything. So the fact that he's even dressing down, I think that's kind of I would even get rid of that part, and maybe keep, as Dave says, Admiral Holdo so that she can turn out to be the spy. That would be.
Well, the thing with Poe is that, as old as he is, in terms of Oscar Isaac's age and whatnot, he's not young. And he's clearly been in command of his squadron for a while. And for Leia to dress him down as reckless and not following orders or whatnot, you have plenty of examples in real military history where, and even in other military science fiction, where the commander on the ground sometimes has a better understanding of what's going on than the commanders out, back at headquarters. This is a similar kind of thing. And, a couple of lines, Poe can sit there and say, the situation changed. I had to adapt, and this is what we ended up having to do. And, the fact that Leia has to dress him down completely undermines his credibility as a leader. And then you have to fight that for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that should never have happened.
So,
and he, Jason's right. Poe, as in his late 30s, as a commander of a squadron, modern military time, he's an old man. He's been around for a long time. He's old. Like the rest of these guys are going to be so much younger. He's going to have seen a lot of stuff. He would be at the right rank for commanding a squadron or a wing of aircraft in his late 30s, 40.
The example they should have used for Poe's character is Pappy Boyington from Baba Black Sheep.
Yeah.
Black Sheep Squadron, whichever title it as. It's an excellent series. Robert Conrad played Pappy. And it's based on an actual squadron from that was stationed in the South Pacific during World War II. But if you have a Poe that's kind of like Pappy Boyington, then you can even reinforce further that he's the old man, even though he's in his late 30s. He's the seasoned veteran that's been through it all already. So
Let me make a few notes
And
here.
that's how they're going to be, especially in war. It's going to be even worse. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be more that way.
So I agree with everything you guys are saying. Leia didn't, in the original, she demoted him. In this one, she promoted him. And
yeah, but she still dresses him down. And
she does, because she has, hold on. She has a valid point. They lost significant resources, and she was arguing her point. She is in command, and he disobeyed orders. So,
But they wouldn't
but
have destroyed the dreadnought if he hadn't taken that risk.
That's right, and that's why he points out his side of that story. So it's he's not just a whip puppy here. This is an argument going on between,
from a military perspective. Training a bunch of crappy bombers that obviously don't work very well and are useless for this giant ship is a great trade. And I would actually, my change in the situation to make it what I would, Poe should come back and he should be a little bit saddened by the amount of losses to his men that he's taken. And Leia should be
stop. Don't get ahead. Don't get ahead.
Leia should be doing the opposite in this point and be saying, hey, I understand you made a good choice. Buck up, carry on. We got a war to win, type of thing. But anyway.
Well, we got half of that.
Yeah, you get part of that.
At the very least, she could sit there. What happened? And he says, well, this thing happened and we had to adapt and change everything out. And yet Dave Pappy Boyington got dressed down because he was not he was a rogue. I mean, Black Sheep Squadron was basically Rogue Squadron. They were a bunch of misfits. So
okay. Dave points something out here. Yeah, I forgot if I mentioned it. Is there is no mention of hyperspace tracking. I've eliminated that. Instead, there was a trader that did something much more conventional, saying, "Hey, here we are." So that's just something to note. Okay, so good discussion. I agree. I understand your points. I will remind you though, I'm trying to keep things. I'm not wholesale trying to discard things, but I could see how you have different views on that. Okay.
And Dave's point here on the screen to me, I think, is the biggest weakness in the entire film for the A, the A plot, which is like Poe keeps doing everything that is the good stuff. He keeps trying to save the thing and figure out what's going on and try to save people. And he keeps getting crap for doing it. He's the only one who seems to be trying to do anything. Everyone else doesn't seem to make any sense.
Anyway. One other thing I want to make clear here in what I'm portraying is that Poe it has been a field commander. That's he is the leader of flying the missions. He's the guy in the field doing it. Leia has now shifted him into a higher position where he's the one overseeing things, not from the field. He's the one that's sending these people now to do this job, and that's why she made this reference about leadership. Okay, we don't need to go into it further at that point, but the point is his position has shifted at this. Okay, so are we ready for next scene?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, go ahead. Yeah.
I think. Let's see. Okay, so we shift. I'm shifting back to Octo at this point again, and this one I kind of scripted out. I'm not an actor, so I could go back and forth through it, but I'll try to describe what it is. So as we left off, Luke was rushing with Rey to go into where they arrive here is going to the Jedi Temple that is on the island, and this is where Kylo starts to come back into the story. Now this is supposed to be kind of a like a psychological pressure scene kind of thing here. So visually, I imagine that this is going back and forth, and this is dealing with the connection between Rey and Kylo, this mental communication thing, and so we're shifting between a scene that would be visually dark and then the one with Rey and Luke, which is outside or at the temple during the daytime on the island here, and then the other one is more like Kylo's setting, a dark foreboding setting. And so Kylo begins essentially assaulting Rey's mind in this scene. And so it's flipping back and forth, and Rey is this common point. It's flipping back and forth to Kylo and Rey and Luke, in which Kylo is taunting her. So I'll just kind of read through it quickly. He says Skywalker can't help you. He's a failure and a coward. Luke is trying to get, and Rey is being, she's being affected by this. Kylo is battering her mind here. So Luke is trying to grab her out of this, and telling him that she has to concentrate, shut him out. Kylo is able to, based on what he's saying, he's hearing what Rey is hearing, or reading Rey's thoughts at least. And he says, similar to the original, by the way, he says, he's afraid of your power. Luke says, don't give in to temptation. Kylo says he'll abandon you again. And then we have a flash to Jakku, where Rey is a young child again being left on Jakku. Very similar to what was shown in The Force Awakens. It comes back to Luke, and he says, Luke is kind of frantic at this point. He's saying, I couldn't let what happened to Ben happen to you, talking to Rey. Kylo is continuing to taunt her. He says, ask him what happened at the temple, and Rey is, kind of mouthing these words. So what happened? Luke says he destroyed the temple and killed the others. Kylo says, ask him what really happened. Luke says, I had no choice. And then Kylo, screaming. Kylo is like really supposed to be very menacing in this, and he screams, ask him how he failed me. And then Rey, kind of, is able to gather herself a little bit and cut off the connection, leaving, Rey and Luke kind of sprawling to the ground. And then, there's a few beats, and then we see Kylo back by himself, offline, as it were. And, he's a little bit stunned and staggered that Rey was able to cut this off, but he seems pleased, kind of smug, that his efforts are working. And then Luke and Rey, kind of gather themselves, and then they enter the temple at that point. And that's where this scene ends. Let's see. Well, okay, so again, I kind of have to tell you what I'm trying to portray here because I can't portray it. This scene is meant to show that this isn't the cutesy little flirtation garbage that Rey and Kylo were engaging in with, a little conversation, and can you see me, and all this stuff. This is Kylo assaulting her mind, being again very menacing, very brutal, trying to break her. He's portrayed as a predator here. This isn't flirtation, and this is him trying to turn her. So and Luke desperately trying to stop this from happening. Again, now we're getting the sense that Luke is kind of understands what's happening here, this connection kind of thing going on. So that's where that scene ends.
Anybody got a comment on that?
I mean, so far so good, I guess.
Okay, I'm losing the audience here. I gotta.
I mean, anything's an improvement over what was there.
Okay, I'm relying solely on low expectations. Okay.
I mean, there's this. My problem is the whole. There's some of the old my sense is that Rey is still trying to throughout this movie. Rey is still trying to save Kylo, like he's salvageable, right?
In the original, you're talking.
Yeah, in the original, yeah.
Yes.
But
yes.
I mean, he be. I mean, he killed his dad in the last movie. Isn't that the ultimate non-savable thing? Like, are we really thinking that he should be savable?
Yes. That's a good point.
That whole line of when they're, she's talking to him and still trying to be nicey nice and
yes,
aren't we past that point?
I'm eliminating.
That's my, and I'm not saying that you're not, you're not doing that. It's just that's my sort of problem with it.
You have an opportunity there if you're going to go down that road where Rey is still kind of hopeful that Kylo can be redeemed, that Ben can be redeemed. You do it in such a way that echoes Luke trying to save his dad. There's still good in him. I can try to turn him back to the light side type of
Yeah,
thing.
she did kind of do that in the original, though.
Yeah, but
But naively.
the back half of that needs to be, Ray comes out and says, there's still good, there's still potential, and that needs to resonate with Luke. He needs to hear the echo of his own hope to save his dad in this, and you didn't get that in the original. You didn't get that in Last Jedi. He's off. Get off my lawn! I'm a coward still, and you don't get any payoff for any of it.
One thing that I thought was interesting in The Force Awakens is they kind of juxtaposed, or reversed, I should say, Kylo. Kylo was trying to fight the light side.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to be evil, is what it seemed to me. He was fighting not being evil, and they threw that away a little bit. So I'm rolling with that, more the evil side here. So
and that's the problem with this movie, is that they sort of put out these sort of things and then they just go, let's get rid of it, because I mean, my thing is, like I said, it's not
a sequel because he didn't pay attention to the first movie.
My thing is that, I mean, is Kylo redeemable? I mean, he killed his dad. He probably isn't redeemable. But if he's going to be redeemable, then you're going to need to show that. Like, it's pretty hard to come back after you killed your old man, right? So, like, they're going to have to really push into that. But instead, Rey's kind of like playing little touchy fingers with them, and well, maybe we can save him, and she doesn't try to convince Luke of that or nothing. It's just, whatever. We don't even know if she's trying to save him. She's talking to him, kind of trying to save him, maybe. I don't know.
Well, later on in the Last Jedi original, she very much gets into this moon-eyed, whatever garbage.
Yeah.
So you'll see how this goes here. Okay.
Well, and if you're wanting to if you absolutely have to redeem Ben, then I would lean into a flip. So you get Rey, who's all good, hopeful, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and learning all of the ways of the Jedi somehow because Mary Sue. But she's got all of this potential, and somewhere in the midst of this movie, and maybe it's the throne room scene. I know I'm getting ahead, but you flip. And, Ben gets redeemed in Rise of Skywalker at the same time she falls to the dark side. Because she's a Palpatine.
Yeah, I mean, when this movie first came out, I said, they should, if they want to flip the script and they want to, challenge your expectations and all that stuff, make Rey go to the dark side, have Kylo pull her over. And then it can be that whole questionable thing. Well, is she really over to the dark side, or is she over to the dark side to, quote, like, infiltrate them and try to stop them, which is a storyline that was put out after Return of the Jedi.
That was Dark Empire.
Empire. And a few, we've mentioned this on your show, I think, Jason, before. Luke did this. He kind of went over to the dark side to hunt down Palpatine because Palpatine's not dead in this thing. But, I mean, you could have done that storyline, but no. Instead, we got this. But anyway.
All right. Ready to proceed?
Yeah.
Okay. Scene 6. We're back at the Radis.
Scene 6.
the chase going on here. The resistance plan, has for the rally point has failed. Now they're basically on the run. Kind of desperate. Fuel's low, and their options are running out. So Leia, Akbar, Finn, and Rose, who is tagged along now after her, taking down the spy, they're back on the bridge. They're trying to figure out what to, come up with another plan for, getting some kind of help. Leia mentions Lando, says that, she knows where he last has been, which is Canto Bight, where he runs a opulent casino. Canto Bight, you can't just communicate with them. It is an exclusive place that doesn't like a lot of outside influence, maybe based on Lando's past experience. So he, you can't just call in. So that's kind of my, contrivance here as to why they can't just call him up on the hologram. But in what's going on outside at this point, kind of in the background of this, again, keep in mind the bombardment is continuing to go on. Another Star Destroyer arrives to join Hux's fleet, and the starfighter attacks are continuing. The whole idea here with the starfighter attacks is that even though they can outrun them, the starfighters can launch off of the First Order ships and be harassing them more directly. So the Poe is handling all this, and he has no choice but to use his fighter wing, to try and hold off the fighters. Just a quick side note: in traditional Star Wars, TIE fighters are generally inferior to an X-wing, let's say. They don't have shields, things like that, even though the First Order ones are supposed to be upgraded and such. I'm kind of going with this, that there's swarms of TIE fighters and a relatively small number of Resistance or Rebel ships. So they're fighting and they're taking down the bad guys a lot because I want to have a lot of action here, but they're also losing things. And again, Poe keeps on getting the reports. Another one of his friends is dead. The point is he's feeling the weight of command here, but he's doing his job. Dealing with this. And then as the scene goes, Leia goes off to, a side room or something, her command or ready room, and we see that, again, in the opening crawl, we hear that the First Order is militarily taking over the entirety of the Republic, after they blew up, their fleet and various planets. They're moving in to finish the job, and Leia is trying, she's trying to work her connections and things to find out where they can run, where they can find support. And I thought that there could be a few brief scenes of her trying to contact people and them, just being wiped out. They're now gone too. They've been taken over. A few others maybe just say, we've surrendered, something like that. So the point is that Leia, this is a scene where we see that Leia is losing everything that she has fought, since the end of the original trilogy to build. The Republic, that she valued and fought for her whole life to rebuild and then support is falling apart in front of her. The idea is that there is a lot of loss going on here. And then, she, part of this is that she's, thinking about Luke as well. So the whole idea is that things are growing very desperate here. I don't know. I don't think there's a direct correlation here. In the original, this would have been a lot of the nonsense with Holdo and Finn, and Holdo and Poe, and degrading his character and such. That's not happening here. Instead, Poe is shown to be a capable leader, but one who is feeling the burden.
A quick question here: Is Rose Tico in your version here? Is Rose Tico still dressed like a potato?
She doesn't have to be, certainly,
Okay.
but she's a crew member. She could have something a little less dowdy.
Yeah.
Any other quick comments or
sexy evening gown? There you go.
Yeah, she could wear Holdo's outfit instead.
The halo on it.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Or disgruntled? Yeah, you got anything?
I was just going to make a comment about, Rose Tico in a normal kind of like grease monkey outfit that was actually kind of flattering. Would have been fun.
Form fitting, maybe a little closer.
A little bit. I'm thinking
something
more
like Sydney Sweeney would wear.
Oh, no, I don't think anybody can pull off that. I'm thinking more like Wing Commander. The first time you're introduced to Devereaux, she's kind of in a jumpsuit that's like half on, half off. It's there, but it's also not there just for the point of being eye candy.
Aaron Gray from Buck Rogers, something like those flights.
Callie from Battlestar Galactica reboot.
That would be closer to more realistic. Yeah, that's Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Matt, the radar technician, would be wearing.
We're getting off topic here.
Yeah. Okay. So, scene 7. We're back to Octo. So Rey is clear. Luke is sensing that Rey is emerging here further. She's meaning that these, clearly this connection with Kylo, she's a Force user, blah 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 blah. Okay, so Rey, this is again kind of a conversation between Luke and Rey here. This is a bit of exposition. I'll try and go through it quickly. Rey says, "Master Skywalker, what's he talking?" This picks up right where they left off before. What's he talking about? What happened? Then Luke goes into the backstory essentially with Kylo, and he says that Leia feared that Ben was on a dark path, and she wanted his help, so he brought him to the Jedi Temple, where Luke had other students, and then we're shown some flashback scenes here where everything seems to be going well. They're all training and lifting rocks and doing lightsaber drills and so on and so forth. But Luke says, "But the dark side's always there and always gnawing at you." And then Snoke. And then Rey asks about Snoke, and Luke explains that Snoke is not a Jedi or a Sith, but he is a sort of a vampire that is able to feed on those who are strong in the Force. And he says that he can get into your mind, like is happening with you and Kylo right now. He can prey on your fears and drive you into the darkness, and then he kind of tapers off. And Rey says, "And he ensnared Kylo," and Luke says, "No, he ensnared me." And then Rey, disbelieving, says, "You?" Then Luke, we have Luke narrating over a battle at the Jedi Temple, his Jedi Temple. He says, "Ben had fallen to the dark side, and he and his Knights of Ren were attacking the temple, and I was fighting them, and the situation was desperate." And then we have scenes of the other Padawans getting cut down, similar to Order 66 style thing, and Luke being the only, really fully trained Jedi here. He says, "My students were being killed. I fought them to a standstill, and that's when Snoke struck." He says, "My anguish and fear and aggression, he'd fed off of it, and he'd overpowered me, just like Ben was trying to do to you." And Luke explains, "Once they form this link with you, then you're vulnerable." And he says, and I realize there's a lot of exposition here, so stick with me. Rey explains, he tells her now that Kylo got in my mind, when from The Force Awakens, when he was interrogating her, and Luke again narrating over a scene. This is showing the temple where he and R2 are seeing the temple burn. He says, "When I became aware of myself again, they were all dead except for you." And then you see Luke finding a very a young Padawan Rey, wounded but alive in the wreckage. And Rey says, "Who am I?" Luke says that you were an orphan, that Ben and he found her, sensing that she was strong with the Force. And then he says, I had to save you from Snoke and Ben." And then he says, Luke explains that he, again, right after the temple had been destroyed, and he doesn't know what's going, what they can do to him or her. He says that he created a sort of a block in her mind to essentially cut her off from the Force, so they couldn't get to her. And then that's why she was left on Jakku. Now there probably needs to be some explanation on who he was supposed to leave her with on Jakku, being better than a slaver essentially. But I'll not get too much into that right now. And then he also explains why he's on Ahch-To, because this is as we saw in the original, this is an ancient Jedi temple. And things are very much in balance here, and this is where he is able to essentially bolster himself and avoid being controlled. He says, "If Snoke was able to control me, I'd be a terrible weapon against everyone that that he cares about." So that's why he's here. He doesn't want to be here. He doesn't know how to avoid being controlled by Snoke again. So that's why he's hiding.
Okay, well, it's starting to get interesting. Before we go on, anyone in the chat, if you want to put in your comments about how well Cam is doing so far, rate him. Feel free to go ahead. Sorry, Cam. Carry on.
Okay. Well, that's basically the end of that scene.
That scene. All right. Okay, so rate him how he's doing so far. Put in comments, whatever you think. Any comments from the panelists? Jason, disgruntled.
I like the idea that Luke is on Octo, not of his own free will, to get away from everything because he's, demoralized. The idea that he's basically hiding in order to protect people, kind of like what Yoda was doing on Dagobah. It kind of goes a little bit more in character than what we got. I'm still not thrilled about Luke walking away from everything, because he should. If there's the biggest problem that I got, not the biggest problem, the whole idea of the First Order, for him to not even know that any of that was going on in all of this time that the New Republic has been in existence, that still doesn't work for me either. Now he had to have left for Octo almost, almost immediately after New Republic happened, after Ben was born, because it doesn't make sense any other way for him not to know that the First Order exists. So,
well, in this again, I'm not trying to change the timeline too much. So him leaving would have been around the same time. So I guess Ben was supposed to be a teenager at that point. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline for the First Order is, but I agree that they certainly. We know that Leia knew about Snoke, and that he was trying to get to Ben at that point. Whether they knew fully about the First Order or not at that point, I'm not sure. But again, I'm not trying to change the timeline in this, but good point.
I like the, I always thought that the reason Luke was on Octo was there's this big hole of darkness there, right? And so I assumed that he was there. I thought they said something that he was there and he was hiding. He's using the darkness to hide his light from, Jason, from the First Order, from Sith, from whatever. Like that was my understanding, but I don't know.
Jason referenced that with Yoda. That was one. I don't know if it was an official thing or it was a EU thing, but that was why Yoda supposedly was on Dagobah.
Yeah,
because the tree and everything was masking his presence.
Yeah, and there's tons of life there.
That was introduced in the Heir to the Empire trilogy from Zahn.
Right.
So that's what I
Jason,
thought.
I'm sorry, Jason, you did pick up on that. I was going for that exact parallel.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's hiding near a dark force to hide his light, so it's harder for him to be found, or he can't be found. And I think that fits into what you're talking about here with the trying to, it kind of makes more sense while he's there. He's trying to hide him. The big question is, why is he hiding, right? Like,
yep. Okay, should we go on? Or Disgruntled Jedi, you got anything?
So far it sounds pretty good. I mean, again, anything is a step up. You're elevating the chicken scratch of a 3-year-old to actual, maybe a narrative. I have a few ideas.
It's crayons on the wall at this point.
I mean, that's an improvement. They're crayons that are higher up the wall at this point, which is always good. I've got a few things that I might change, but without knowing where you're going with it, I could see them not really fitting in without knowing the end of where you're going with this.
Okay, that's fine. And I'll try and accelerate through this so we can get to the end, and you guys can do those kinds of comments too, if that's
all right.
Cool
So we're got 10th of the way through, right?
About half.
Okay.
I'll this might go a little faster. Okay, so scene
Halfway.
8, the Canto Bight scene. So Finn and Rose arrive at Canto Bight. They find Lando. He's a big shot running the place. He's got a big entourage holding court, like old school Lando you might imagine him to be. Now, a little note here: there's a character shown in the crowd, someone you saw from Maz Kanata's castle in Force Awakens. So they come to Lando, say Leia sent us. The First Order's taken over, and Lando's like, kind of dismissive of it. It's like business is business, and his days of fighting are over. And there could be a cutesy line here. He could say, "Oh, my days of fighting the Star Wars are over," but probably not. And then so he kind of blows him off, and he says, "Have a good time on me," and he like flicks him a chip from the casino. And Finn catches it and looks at it, and Rose starts to kind of complain about it, but Finn kind of grabs her and they go off, and Lando kind of watches him go, and then he excuses himself from the the table or wherever he's holding court. Finn rushes off, or with Rose, and says, kind of shows him what he's got, and Lando slipped him a communicator. And so then they race back to their shuttle where Lando contacts them. He says he's being watched, but he thinks he knows where or that he does know where the resistance, some other resistance fleet is, and that he will contact them and tell them that Leia needs help and where to go. So satisfied with that, Finn and Rey take off, getting ready to head back to the Radius. So this is a very brief scene. Not there's no space horses or any of this garbage or any we're freeing the slave stuff. This is just a straight to it scene. They get back to the ship. They inform Akbar, Leia, and Poe that help is on the way. They're coming from wherever Lando told them they were, and they're the fleet at this point says they're trying to make it to the crate system, or the planet crate, which is nearby, where the chase is happening. And and in the background here again, you see that the bombardment is still going on. They're getting hammered, and then we leave Finn and Rose, and we see briefly now Snoke's command ship arrives at the chase. And Poe is sending out his pilots again. We see that they've lost a third ship of their small ships now. So I think there's the Radis and 2 others left at this point. And then the scene shifts back to, well, that's the end of that scene. Unless you got any comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty good. The only thing I would do would be, if Lando's going to be so, maybe there's a few, suspicious looking characters who might be first order spies or something like that, or people who are in the crowd. So he would be looking at them and, be.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. I said that there was the character from Maz's Castle. So it's the character's Bazine Natal, who was the one that informed on BB-8. When Han went there.
Here's my other issue, and so far it hasn't been addressed. But one of the things that bugged me about this was this whole idea that there was a resistance to the First Order. And I'm thinking, hold on, you're the government now.
Right.
You're the new republic. Where are all of the resources and the military assets and everything that you have at your disposal as the leader of the government? You know, whether Leia was the chancellor or not, or head of state, she was at least high up enough in the government. And I know they explain it away in the books that she split off because nobody believed that there was any kind of an imperial remnant or whatever. But you don't get that in the movie.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Who are you resisting? Resistance usually happens, like a fifth column against the government. You are the government. It doesn't make any sense. If you're gonna ask for help, call the people that work for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this falls under that was established in The Force Awakens, and I didn't even attempt to change that. But it's a good point.
And the funny thing is, I was just going to say that, and I hadn't read the extra stuff that you're talking about, Jason. I had no idea that was what happened. I said I was going to say, it has to be something like that, where the government is not doing their job. So these, the grizzled old veterans who fought the Empire and know what a threat it is, get together and say, well, if you guys are going to pay attention, we're going to form our own military and we're going to be ready for when you inevitably fail.
Yeah, it's a Leia-centric book. I want to say it's called Bloodlines or something. I don't know, but it explores some of that, and it's basically, she sees this coming, and the rest of the government is like, "Oh, poo. It's not.
You're just an old warmonger. You just
you're just being an alarmist. We've got other things to worry about." And so she goes off on her own. But that's never made any sense to me.
Yeah, I think I mean, I think that Cam, you're under the limitations that Cam has put himself under. He can't really address that. We gotta assume that.
I get
We gotta assume that it happens already, or that happens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, you're right. This was a big problem. They should have mentioned something about it. There could have been in the movie, there could have been a throwaway line, or Leia saying something like, "Finally, they're waking." I guess after they blew up the star, like the New Republic, the star systems in the Force Awakens, there could have been a line like, "Well, maybe now they'll start paying attention to defense spending," or something like that, right? Like,
well, or you could even do something along the lines of, why can't you call Capital City? Why can't you call Coruscant and say, well, because they're all dead. I mean, it's something there that establishes a reason why you're calling other quote unquote resistance people instead of government agency people. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just something to lampshade it and say, well, this is why we're doing this in the movie.
Yeah, I will make one note: is that scene with Leia earlier, where she was trying to contact other people in the Republic and or Resistance, is they're getting wiped out as this is going on. They're like it said in the initial crawl. The First Order is taking the other systems out, not after having blown some up, they're conventionally taking other ones out. But you're right. In background, yes, it's kind of a stupid setup, but I can't deal with that in this rewrite. If I go back to Force Awakens, maybe. But okay, ready to press forward?
You bet. Press on.
Okay. Back to Octo. Kylo. We start again. Kylo is assaulting Rey's mind again, taunting her. He tells her directly. He says her friends are going to die. Leia's going to die. Finn's going to die. Everyone she knows. And then Rey is, forces him out again. However, Rey believes this. She tells Luke that she can see this through the Force. That she's seen Finn in danger. Luke tells her that she's in danger if she leaves, and Kylo will continue this assault, and he will, she is not in a position to stop him. Rey says she has to save her friends. Luke. Now, of course, this you could see this is mirroring Empire Strikes Back with Luke being lured away to Cloud City. Luke says very much the same thing. She's not ready to face him, but despite his protestations, she's adamant and she's going to go. Luke then gives her Anakin's lightsaber back. Rey leaves on the Falcon with Chewie. R2 stays behind with Luke. They watch. They're watching. The two of them together watching the Falcon leave, feeling somewhat helpless. Luke's situation now changes. And then as the scene ends, you see a Force ghost of Yoda appear. Scene ends. I think I should probably press on, unless you got something specific to mention with that.
Nah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Now we're moving into a series of scenes that are kind of going back and forth here. So I'm just going to, rip through them. The scene opens in the midst of the space battle again. First Order overwhelming the remaining ships. Another ship has joined them, another Star Destroyer. Rose and Finn return. They've miscalculated. They come into the middle of the battle. They try to run. Tally, the A-Wing commander, see them come in and they try to cover them as they're trying to get back to the Raddus, and she's killed along with most of the other fighters at this point. The Finn and Rose are caught in a tractor beam and pulled into Snoke's ship. Poe is at this point, he just saw the commander he sent out there, to lead this die. He, basically starts running down to the, he's going to take things into his own hands. He, is going to go jump in his ship. Leia stops him and he says and reminds him that, he's the commander now. That the camera stays with Poe for a moment as Leia goes back to talk to Akbar. And again, Akbar's been in this the whole time. He's commanding the fleet, the capital ship. Leia and Akbar engage in a conversation as we kind of see, Poe's reaction to this, the pressure of command. And then Leia says, "Commander, we need you," and calls him over. We cut to the space battle. At this point, Rey arrives. Kind of the same thing as with Chewie dropping her off, trying to get on the ship. She gets pulled in. Very much the same. Kylo waiting for her, falling directly into the trap. Kylo, at that point, escorts her off to go see Snoke again, very much similar to the original. Finn, is frantic about this because his girlfriend is being taken away, and Kylo just blows him off completely. And then Hux shows up, very smug, thinking, seems very pleased with things. And then he turns to Rose and congratulates her, reporting that their forces have engaged the Resistance fleet that Lando was supposed to be contacting and have been destroyed. Rose also seems pleased, hails the First Order. Hux walks away. Rose turns to Finn and says all traitors of the First Order will be destroyed. And she leaves.
Hmm.
And
Saw
then
that one coming.
okay.
That was going to be one of my things. Was it would have been an interesting thing if when you find the spy and Rose is the one that killed her, if Rose is the other spy or was the actual spy and just killed somebody that was in the hallway.
You're correct. She was the actual spy. And he was the guy guarding the thing. She was the one in the engineering. She's the one that fled there, blasted him. She saw the opportunity. Here's my way out. I can remain a spy. Oh, how clever I feel. Okay. Now we shift to Snoke's throne room. In the lift, Kylo is creeping on Rey big time here, taunting her about how she's his now, and she'll learn to enjoy her time as his new apprentice. Kylo arrives again, very pleased with himself, presents Rey to Snoke, now expecting his reward for having, done what he was told. Snoke congratulates Kylo briefly, but then he turns his attention to Rey, beginning to mock her for thinking Skywalker could help her, but that he's no longer of any consequence. Snoke reveals essentially that Rey was the prize he wanted the whole time, referring to something that the audience isn't fully aware of at this point. Snoke, again, there's talks a lot about him possessing Rey, that Rey is his now, and Kylo reacting kind of like, what? She's mine. Snoke, kind of puts Kylo in his place, saying, "You're all all of you belong to me." And then turns back to Rey and begins to dig into her mind. Again, similar to Last Jedi. Reaction shot from Kylo is he is very upset by this. We cut back to the Raddus. Following the meeting between Akbar, Poe, and Rey, Poe is organizing a desperate evacuation, similar to what Holdo had done, trying to get the crew on the transports to escape as they're approaching a planet. We're left with Leia and Akbar on the bridge, and they, from far away, we see them having a discussion. Leia leaves, saying, "May the Force be with you." We cut back to Snoke's throne room. Snoke is continuing to torture Rey, with Kylo looking on, agitated more and more. Snoke is focusing entirely on Rey, ignoring Kylo. We cut to the Raddus. We show Leia and Poe boarding the shuttles. We cut to Akbar, who turns the Raddus to face the pursuing fleet. We cut to Hux on the command ship, who, commenting to his fellow officers, says, "We have them now." We cut to the throne room. The throne room, Rey is, Snoke is breaking her mind, essentially. Very focused on this, very gleeful that he has his prize. Kylo breaks into a fit of jealous rage, screaming, "She's mine," cuts down Snoke, killing him. Rey is released, falling to the ground, free of Snoke's mental assault, but exhausted. A few beats happen, and then Snoke's guards descend on Kylo, engaging in a melee that doesn't suck. Hopefully, that makes sense. And Kylo's, he's feeling the dark side at this point. He's just turned on his master, and he is, full dark side, evil Sith / evil Jedi, whatever you want to see. Rey takes this opportunity. She force grabs Anakin's lightsaber and runs for it. We cut back to Hux. The perspective from the bridge of the command ship, which is now Snoke's ship. The Raddus has turned and is facing them. The other Star Destroyers are moving to flank around the Raddus, continuing to fire and battering their shields. The communications officer says the Raddus is hailing them. Another officer says, General, their weapons are being deactivated. Hux says, hold your fire, target all weapons on the bridge, and open the channel. Akbar says, this is Admiral Akbar of the Raddus. Hux, again very arrogant, says, is this surrender? Akbar pushes a button. We cut to the launch bay. The transports rocket out towards the planet. Akbar says, no, it's a trap. He hits another button. The Raddus detonates in a very large blast, catching the First Order fleet in that blast. Not destroying them necessarily, but causing, significant damage. The Snoke ship being the primary one of them. Cut back to the command ship. Sorry, go ahead.
No holdo maneuver?
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay, Dave's pleased at least. No holdo maneuver. Instead, so we cut back to the command ship, where we see internal explosions, chaos. It took the command ship took the brunt of the blast from the Raddus. People running around. Rey is running to escape. Finn, who is being carried off by the guards, is able to take advantage of the distraction as well. Grabs blaster, fights him off, and runs. Rey and Finn meet up and make their way to the landing bay, where they go for the shuttle that they were where Rose and Finn arrived on. Launch out. Again, things are very chaotic, burning and such, similar to what was happening in the original one where Phasma was there. Oh yeah, there's no Phasma. And then they also flee towards Crate. We could pause there. A lot happened there. So
there's already very little Phasma in the movie anyway, so
right. And why bother with a worthless
much
character?
Yeah.
So we're moving towards the end here, but I guess this will be probably our last stopping point.
Yeah, so far it's holding together better than the actual one did.
I mean, I'm liking what I'm hearing. So
you have successfully arrived at high school level of.
Okay. All right. I'm working on it. Okay, you ready to keep going?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, do it. Let's hear it.
Okay, scene 13A. Here we are. Kylo and Hux, almost exactly the same as when Hux discovered Snoke's death. Kylo blames his death on Rey. Kylo sees his command, orders Hux to prepare an assault on Crate. Bearing in mind, the idea here is that the the fleet is somewhat damaged by this by the Akbar maneuver, whatever you want to call it, by Akbar's trap. 13B, the resistance arrives on Crate, scrambles to set up their defenses. They set up their communications, set on a distress call, but Finn tells them no one's coming. Then that Rose, betrayed them. The facility here on Crate is equipped with a little exposition. We learned that they have a fairly strong air defense, so that the First Order is going to end up going with a ground assault. The base, and then again, similar to Empire Strikes Back, they set up their Walker assault. And similar to, the original Last Jedi. The base is equipped not with garbage pieces of junk, but the good old Hoth so-called snow speeders, just actually speeders. Poe cobbles together a few pilots to form a defense. Trench defenses are set up, again, paralleling Hoth and the original. Let's see. There's no super weapon in this version. The First Order ground assault begins. with the walkers. Battle ensues between the walkers and speeders. Again, things are happening quickly now. There's actually, obviously, I'm hitting the high points here. The Falcon and Chewie arrive to assist. But essentially, they're being overpowered. The forces, the First Order forces are too high, and the base is at their mercy. Kylo is able to sense that Rey. Sorry, I forgot to mention Rey is one of the people piloting one of the speeders. Rey senses this. It basically issues an ultimatum, orders that if they turn Rey over or they'll destroy them all. Leia says no. Rey says, "I'm doing it. I'll try and save you. Cover your escape, even though they have nowhere really to escape to." Rey lands her speeder, gets out, waiting for Kylo. Kylo, comes down out of his ship, and Rey says that if he wants her, then he's going to have to take her, meaning fight, taunting him. Okay, scene 14. The battle between Kylo and Rey is happening, a lightsaber battle. Kylo is reveling in his dark side power at this point, and Rey hasn't been, despite the first movie, Rey isn't fully awakened, as recalling back that Luke has placed blocks in her where she's not really able to access the Force completely. Even though she's had visions and things, she is not at full power. Cut to the scene in the base where a ship is seen coming in, or 3PO reports a ship coming in. Kylo is getting the better of Rey in the fight. Rey losing a hand. At that point, Red 5 appears with Luke standing on the nose of it, with R2 piloting it. Snoke is now dead. Luke is free to act. Mirroring Obi-Wan in Return of the Sith, Luke tells Ben that he's failed him. He says, "I failed you, Ben. I failed you." Kylo says, "Then come and get your punishment." A lightsaber duel begins with Luke and Kylo. At first, Luke is doing well. His mastery of the Jedi arts being shown in this battle, but Luke is old. He's out of practice, similar to Obi-Wan in A New Hope. And Kylo, again, is in a dark side frenzy. He is extremely powerful at this point, and just very aggressive, and battering Luke down. At one point, they part momentarily. Luke centers himself, and we see a flashback to Yoda on Ahch-To telling Luke, it's the line that Yoda actually used in The Last Jedi, but it was something to the effect of, "It's a place for a master. It's a place of the master for our students to surpass us." And Luke says, "You can't win, Ben. If you strike me down, we will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." Kylo, in rage, resumes his attack with a brief sequence of Luke positioning himself, and then, following Obi-Wan, allows himself to be struck, disappearing at the last moment, his cloak and lightsaber being all that remains. Oh, incidentally, his green lightsaber is what he has through this, his Luke's lightsaber. Kylo looks down. Rey stands as if something's happening to her, as the blocks that Luke put into her dissolve, and she becomes fully awakened in the Force, and not by her doing, but unleashes a Force blast from herself, incapacitating Kylo, and shocking the First Order. Flashback to the base. Lando arrives with a few ships, also with Wedge. Says, "Better late than never. We're coming down." Small group of ships lands behind the base, where they escape out the back, similar to the original. Basically Kylo is retrieved by Hux and his forces, and Rey escapes with the Resistance, and that's the end of the movie.
Wow.
It's better.
I did like the point with the with Snoke being dead, Luke is now free. I didn't see that part coming. I did see Rose being a spy, but I didn't see that part coming. That was well thought out.
I would, Yeah, I would mention that the original movie is 2 hours and 32 minutes long. You could have just cut it before Crate, and
I,
that would have been still a pretty long movie. Like
I
we could have saved that with the people escaping. I'm not saying, I know you're trying to, you're trying to follow the whole movie thing, but
yeah, I did actually
2:30 for a
consider.
movie.
I did actually consider that. I thought about having Luke show up on the Star Destroyer on Snoke's ship and fighting with Kylo there, but I couldn't quite figure how to get him back off and with the fleet and such. So, and again, like you said, I was trying to stick with it as much as possible.
You're probably cutting a good 10 or 15 minutes right out of the Candle Bite scene just there. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it was a lot shorter.
The whole thing with the animals and stuff was completely unnecessary, and it was virtue signaling for an ideological thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
you take that piece away, that 15, 20 minutes.
I consider getting rid of Canto Bite completely, like you mentioned, Jason.
Yeah.
I like that Lando's involved in there. I mean, that's a perfect place for him. He's a gambler. He's a bit of a scammer.
Well,
why are we making up? Bring back the old. Leia's going to reach out to her old buddies. She's
and even then in the movie when they're talking to Maz Kanata, and she's like, "Yeah, go to Canto Bite. There's a guy I know," and everybody assumed it was going to be Lando to start with. I mean, you're right.
Yeah,
it's the perfect place for him to show up. And then it was this guy who is this guy? We've never see. This is the thing is that The Last Jedi has a number of characters in it that we're supposed to be emotionally invested in without knowing anything about them. I mean,
right.
Holdo's the worst example of it because she's supposed to be this great general. I've never heard of her. I don't know anything about her. There's no audience connection to her. I'm not invested in her, so I don't care when she dies.
Everything that Holdo did could have been done by Admiral Akbar, who we are invested in.
Should have been done by Akbar.
Well,
yes.
But instead they disrespect him because he blows up and everyone's like, what?
That's exactly what I did, though, I
know for sure.
Yeah. I put Akbar in that, and it's a cutesy line, right? With it's a trap, but I think the crowd might have gone wild in the theater, just saying.
I think people would have liked it. Yeah, if he goes to them, it's a trap. What are you guys doing? It's a trap. And then boom.
Again, I wasn't able to work out the beats exactly right, but it's basically Hux saying, "Is this a surrender?" And he says, "No, it's a trap." And then boom,
But
you don't have to work it out.
He's got to say it, but he's got to say it in a way that. Okay, so in Return of the Jedi, I'm going to back up just a little bit. In Return of the Jedi, when they win, the Star Destroyer plows into the Death Star, and everybody's cheering, and Akbar collapses into his chair. You guys remember that?
Yeah, he's kind of like relieved but just exhausted.
I can't believe we made it out of this.
Tired, resigned, and he's like, "This is finally over." I think that's the place where he needs to be when he says it's a trap again. That way, it's not cutesy. And Hux says it's the thing, and you have this pregnant pause, and the way Akbar says it, it's the old man who's just so tired and wants it to be over, and this is what I've got to do to make this thing happen.
Yeah,
I think that's one way you could go with it. I would actually, maybe he could say it with a little more force, resignation because he's going to die, but he's like, no, it's a trap.
Yeah.
And then, he is resigned, but he's also determined, resigned and determined, as opposed to sort of tired and resigned. But you could go either way.
So, the part about Luke was the biggest struggle in this, because it's a pretty deep hole to dig out of. That Luke abandoned everybody, So, the whole idea with the twist that I was trying to build in there, that the whole time we think, Snoke turned Kylo, isn't so much what I was going for. Was Kylo was already turned. He was already on his way to the dark side, and Luke was basically holding him back.
Yeah.
And so Snoke took Luke off the table. Figured out a way to do it. And leaving Luke with no choice, because a hero doesn't just say, well, I'm going to run off and let everything go. The whole point was Luke staying was the worse option. And so that needs to be portrayed in it. Again, I can't really portray the emotion in just reading this out to you, but that's what was supposed to come across.
All right, go at them, guys.
Well, okay. Did I accomplish? Did I address the big problems for?
Take them apart, guys. Bramble with them. Bramble.
You did address the big parts with the show.
Hold on. Before we go on, and then just so we know, that is the word of the day. Bramble. So word of the day for today's show. So carry on squabbling amongst yourselves.
It's better. I mean, it's a low bar anyway, but it holds together better than Johnson's script does. I'll give you that. But you're basically at this point, you're basically kind of how do we change the recipe when we're halfway through baking the cake? It's
and
like,
the cake is made of dog poop.
Yeah.
Well, The Force Awakens was a weak foundation to build on.
It absolutely was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was.
But see, the thing is, I think most people recognize it as a weak entry in hindsight, because when I watched it, my takeaway from The Force Awakens was, yeah, it's similar to the first movie. It's similar to Star Wars. But to me, it felt like Abrams and Kennedy, all these people, were basically giving us a Star Wars movie that didn't really take a whole lot of risks in order to reassure people, yeah, we know how to make a Star Wars movie. This felt like a Star Wars movie. It didn't have anything new in it. That was George Lucas's complaint, but it felt like a Star Wars movie that was setting up another trilogy, and I was okay with it. I thought it was fine.
Well, I justified being okay with it because I believed it's like, okay, this left many dangling threads, and the next movie has to forward those things. They have to answer some of these questions. Yeah. And The Last Jedi, the original Last Jedi, not my somewhat barely better version, failed across the board. It failed at everything. It didn't give us a satisfying answer on Luke. It didn't tell us jack squat about Rey. Now, I didn't say a whole lot about Rey here. I went halfway because I don't know if it came across, but I was leaving it open that she could be a Palpatine in this. Snoke seems to be pointing towards that in this.
And doing it that way kind of gives you set up for the flip in the next movie where Ben does get redeemed at the same time Rey falls. Now, one thing that I didn't hear in this is Finn's Force potential, because in the first movie he was set up as everyone was thinking he was going to be the Jedi. He was going to be the guy that and he picks up the lightsaber and he's starting to do stuff. But there's the hint there that he's Force sensitive, and then suddenly we get Rey Mary Sue. And if that through line had happened, instead of Finn's a coward, he's going to run away, have something in there where maybe he's feeling a little bit of Force sensitive premonition. There's another ship coming. We got, or there's something happening at Canto Bight, and he gets these little nudges in the back of his head. We have to go. Something's happening. We got to go. Somebody's going to, something that just gives us a little bit more of a hint that he's starting to wake up as a Force sensitive. And then in the third movie, you could play with that even more, because Kylo comes back, Rey falls. That gives you potential for Finn to step up as a Jedi at the end of that.
I thought about briefly addressing Finn maybe having force sensitivity, but again, I was trying to stay largely in the framework of this, so I didn't go anywhere with it. But those are interesting ideas.
Yeah, I mean, going back to The Force Awakens, I remember watching it, and I agree with it. For me, it was too much like the original Star Wars. It's too many beats that are too similar. I mean, I remember watching the Return of the Jedi and thinking, "What? Another Death Star? Oh, that's kind of suspect." But it worked out. But you should try not to repeat that stuff. But my biggest impression after The Force Awakens was going, like Cam, well, there's a lot of threads they need to follow up on. And, if they can, sort those threads out, maybe it'll be good. But also, this feels there's something wrong. It doesn't feel right. It's off.
Yeah. Well, Dave is mentioning this didn't feel like Star Wars. I did try to make it parallel Empire in various ways. I don't know if I succeeded. Obviously, there were some kind of obvious lifts from that, but I also tried to leave it with, the harrowing nature. The Empire, they were basically losing the whole way along. So I tried to mirror that a little bit. Even though there are some points of hope, it ends on a down note. I'm sorry, it ends on an up note, but after a long defeat.
Right. Which is what you want in Act 2.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same thing here, and it did in the original too, is that, they basically are defeated, but they fight, go on to fight another day. One other note I wanted to make is, this is a personal thing. I wanted to stomp the living hell out of any of this Reylo garbage. I want to make it clear that if you are for that, you have a problem. You are for perverts, because I don't want there to be any cutesy, oh look, they really have a secret romance. No, he's a predator, and she is a victim fighting him off, or a would-be victim.
I don't know if you remember or not. There was a theory at one point that Kylo and Rey were twins that had been separated, very, very much like Luke and Leia in a parallel there.
Which would have been a pretty good parallel.
That could have worked too. And it would have worked to explain the whole dyad mess.
Yeah, that they
came up if they had been twins. And it would have also, gotten to the point where you could do something with maybe Jason and Jaina. But, and 10-year difference, cast actors that are close enough in age that you can make it work. Or maybe not even, they don't have to be twins, I guess. I mean, brother and sister, that gives you that force dyad energy thing that you could use later, not the fact that they're mooning over each other.
Or even half brother and sister, maybe, Solo is kind of a wandering, he's got a wandering eye a little bit, maybe. And, they're going on about how Leia and Solo are divorced.
But if Han is the parent, if Han's the dad and they've got different moms, then one of them wouldn't be force sensitive, because
the other mom
force sensitivity comes from Leia.
But the other mom is force sensitive. Oh, right. I'm digging a little bit.
Yeah.
All right.
The solution to that is Leia just sleeps around.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you make Rey Lando's kid.
Yeah, you bring in, and there's your diversity too, eh?
Well, and the other thing too is with Lando, and Finn, you could have something that sets up, in the first movie, he's the stormtrooper who left the First Order, right? And in the second movie, Lando, wait a minute, I've heard of you. I heard about what you did, and there's the beginnings of the Stormtrooper rebellion in the midst of everything, because you hear a lot of people in Rise of Palpatine, they were talking about how much of a missed opportunity it was for Finn, because when he meets these other stormtroopers who have deserted, he could have been the Jedi leading the deserters. That whole story potential was completely wasted. and maybe not necessarily have him being a leader in the overall resistance, but he gets to lead this pack. These people left the First Order because they were inspired by him leaving. And somewhere in there, they've got to start hearing about this guy. And so you establish there at Canto Bight, Lando's, I heard about you, and you're not the only one. That kind of thing. That lays the groundwork for that whole thing to come out in the third one.
Yeah.
So
Does any go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well,
Go ahead, Ken.
I just had I was going to say, in terms of grading, is did I file off those worst parts? Was there something I missed? I mean, obviously, nobody wanted Luke to be a mope on an island in the first place. But within the restrictions of what I set out to do here, what did I miss? What big points?
I don't think you particularly missed any big points in it. The problem is that you're basically trying to polish. You're trying to polish a turd that came out of, like the animal ate a hedgehog before, and it's just got all these little prickly little bits coming out. But you didn't do half bad. I mean, your idea would work. It's definitely way better than what we got. I wouldn't have given you the same restrictions. I would have just cut the damn thing off after episode 8. But
the only thing still not, I don't think any of us have talked about, is the Mary Sue-ness of Rey. This idea that she is so powerful and she's so skilled at the Force as a natural thing. And if you're going to do the thing where Luke has put in a bunch of blocks in her mind, and once he's dead, all of that snaps away, then you return to the because you've been doing flashbacks. As soon as that snaps, we get this Force visioned thing that fills in all of this stuff. But she's got to struggle through this movie. She has to, she's got to fail. There's got to be more problems she's run into, whether it's her, a failure in her training, or she tried something and found she's got to fall. And that's one of the big problems that people have with Rey, is that she was so perfect and just came to all of this stuff naturally, and she just had all this power, and you got to do something with that.
I kind of sidelined Rey a little bit here. She really, so I can't say that I gave her a whole lot of struggles to overcome. She kind of was just undergoing this attack by Kylo and talking to Luke, and I was trying to fill in her background enough so it gave her a path forward.
Right.
And she did lose. She fled from the one fight with Snoke. Snoke beat her. She had no real resistance to that. She fled from that. She didn't join Kylo in the fight. She just ran. And then at the end, when she had to fight Kylo, she lost. And Luke's sacrifice is what moved her back into the plus zone.
Yeah. And that works.
It's not great. I won't say it's great, but it's, Rey was, I don't think The Force Awakens really made Rey a Mary Sue, but clearly it made her, she's Force sensitive. We can't really get around that. And her path was kind of already at that level. So I couldn't take her backwards really and start from there. So I had to.
Well, the Force Awakens laid the groundwork for her to be a Mary Sue. The potential was there for her to be a Mary Sue, but it was the first act. Last Jedi cemented the Mary Sue aspects of the character. And then by the time you get to Rise of Skywalker, I mean, we're all just wasting our time here because she's so perfect and unbelievable as a character.
I didn't shut that off. If somebody wanted to at this point, and because I didn't have anything in mind for where I would go with the third movie from this either. I was dealing exclusively with the middle section. So, I did leave her in a position where she could be the superpower, thing. So I guess in that sense, I didn't, set up a better path for her, but I did cut her hand off. So I was proud of that.
I'd let her fall. I'd let her fall to the dark side.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
That could also happen.
But so I think some of that is more because evil Rey is sexier.
It's just, and it, if you really want to, your expectations, you want to change them and, try something different. I mean, that's subvert them, make her evil. And, you can redeem her if you want to, or not, but hey, let's do something different. Why do all the chicks have to be perfect and great? Why can't some of them be evil? Right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, we got a little bit of Rose, little bad Rose.
Yeah. So my overall, I mean, I wasn't sure how you're going to do this because I'm of the, it's a turd and it can't be polished, but I'm not going to, you did a way better job than I thought could be done by anybody. And I don't, I'm not faulting you on, if you missed a point here or there, there's so much garbage, in this field that if you missed a few pieces here or there, I'm not going to hold anybody to it, like, geez, it's not going to be perfect. I mean, look what you took and tried to make it, edible.
Yeah.
You should not eat the turd.
Does anybody want to hear my view on what I would change to make the movie? So first thing I would do would be I would take what's his name who does Jack Sparrow, put him on the Radis, have him running around making quips all the time, joking with people and cracking wise. Oh. And then, have Finn sit down and tell us all the story about what's it like to be a stormtrooper in the First Order. That's it.
If I were to make a change, making the least amount of change as possible, I would keep the movie up exactly to the same point as when Rey leaves Ahch-To. And then as Luke is watching the Falcon fly away, I would have somebody else walk up and offer him a hand and have the reveal be that the reason he was on Ahch-To was he had a Jedi school there. And he had an entire class of Jedi that were ready, but they needed Rey to be where she was for reasons that would hopefully be better thought out than what was in the original. And then you can have a reason to, it would be easy to overthink that. You'd have a reason to have Luke and trained Jedi show up on Crate and have a fight there with trained Jedi in probably starfighters as opposed to on the ground, taking out the big walkers and things like that. It would make it at least.
So you're saying that a squad of Jedi shows up at the end to fight the First Order with laser swords?
Yes, I am saying that you would have a squad of Jedi show up, maybe not with laser swords, maybe with starfighters. I'm a fighter guy. I prefer things. If you can get in a ship and blow something up, that's better than walking up to it and stabbing it. But that's just me.
Well, if you're gonna do that, then I would save that for the third movie because Act-2 is supposed to be a downer. Act-2 is supposed to be everything stacked against the heroes. Things are not going our way. Are we ever going to get out of it? So you have the single confrontation between Luke and Ben, and Luke ends up getting killed, and that's when the other ones are like, you go back to Ahch-To and you get to those trainees, and they realize Luke just died, and they're all looking at each other going, we're not ready yet. Crap, what are we going to do? And maybe they're not fully trained Jedi yet. They're in the same place that Luke was in Empire.
Well,
we know just enough. Okay, I guess it's up to us to help. You know,
You know what, Jason? It could also mirror Attack of the Clones, where the Jedi did show up and save the day, but they paid a very, very heavy price.
that could be, yeah, yeah. You could do it. You could. I guess you could do it either way.
Personally, I back before we knew anything about Mandalorians and such, and we just kind of knew about Boba Fett, I always thought it's like the scene I wanted to see was a handful of Jedi fighting an army of Mandalorians, and it being an even match kind of thing.
No.
Ooh, Mara Jade, good point. Could have brought her in there.
There's lots of EU stuff that could have been used.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
And undoubtedly, there's plenty of better ideas than could have, than the Last Jedi was.
Yeah.
But again, I was trying to work a specific challenger.
All right, let's go around. Last comments on how Cam did. What do we think? Jason, you want to go first?
I think he did fine given what he set out to do. I mean, yeah, you're already working with you're already behind the 8 ball where you're starting on this. So I think he did pretty well. Better than I expected it to be.
Well, can I add another? Did you have a favorite or least favorite part of my revision?
Not anything in particular. I mean, I do like the fact that Lando is at Canto Bight instead of Benny Del Toro's character, whoever that was. My thing is, I only watched it once, so everything is an improvement. I was like, which again, it's a low bar. But I didn't have I hate that movie. I absolutely hate that movie.
It's garbage.
Oh.
Disgruntled, do you want to go next?
As for me, I mean, some of the parts that I liked, I like the idea of what you did with Luke and Snoke. That actually worked. I liked Rose being a spy. I didn't catch in this plot or not if you killed her or not, but I'm sure she died somewhere. That's fine. The 2 points I would have changed, I wouldn't have put Poe on the ship. I would have had him out in the actual fighters, controlling the fighters while actually being a pilot, just because he's a good pilot. You wouldn't want your best pilot being in a control room. And the other thing I would have done was, instead of having the Radis explode, I would have had it been an actual ram, just not at hyperspace, because two really big things colliding is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's true. That would have been a nice mirror for Return of the Jedi too, with the Executor going into the Death Star. A little, again.
And they have that on Rogue One too. They have one ship pushing into another one.
That's true. That was cool.
What I was thinking more was Babylon 5. There's a scene in Babylon 5 where one of the big ships rams another, because it's almost completely destroyed. So it just rams one of the other ships, and it's just watching those two things crumble and explode.
Well,
is just fun.
Another great ramming scene is from Deep Space Nine, where the Jem'Hadar ship just rams into the Galaxy class, which is the king of starships at that point, and just takes it out. So yeah, ramming spaceships is cool.
Yes, if they're at normal speed.
I want a restored DS9.
Yeah.
Full series home video release.
I love that show.
HD. Give us DS9 and HD.
I would say that for me, I've got a big problem whenever you make your villains to be idiots, because it detracts from the heroes. So, making Hux, not humiliating Hux, making him more realistic. And of course, the whole idea of Luke being a grumpy old curmudgeon hiding on an island, bringing him, so he's not, I'm here to die. That kind of, that really, I would say that would be my other main problem with the biggest problem with the movie. So adjusting that and changing that is more important things to me.
So it sounds to me like the part that you guys liked least is what I did with Poe. A few different views on that, but well, I mean, your reaction is your reaction. What I was going for there is I wanted to transform Poe into the leader guy that he was progressing instead of being slapped around by Holdo and all that garbage. I wanted it to be like, yeah, he did something that didn't turn out well, and throughout this he's going to learn a tough lesson. And that kind of couples with one other thing I mentioned to Snob, not you other guys, that the theme I was going for throughout the whole thing was sacrifice, that everyone was sacrificing something or seeing the consequences of sacrifice.
If you're going to do that, then take out Poe's ability to fly. Have him get injured, he loses a leg, or something that grounds him. And that goes to Disgruntled's point. You don't want your best pilot sitting on the sidelines. There's got to be a reason why he's out there. His brain is still there, strategy is still there. Okay, fine. If you're going to have to take him out of the cockpit, then injure him somehow. But at the same time, though, the flip side of that, you're forgetting somebody that could be in that position other than Poe, and that's Wedge. You didn't do anything with Wedge.
He did show up at the end, but that was just a cameo.
At the end. But you could take him. You could take General Wedge Antilles at Starfighter Command and have him overall strategy for the fighters, and still leave Poe out in the field.
Well, okay, but yeah, how does Poe grow then? If I do that, don't get me wrong, I love Wedge, and any excuse to put him in, I'd be all about it. But what's Poe's growth at this point then?
His growth is watching his people die,
and dealing with that.
Well, that was in there. He's just doing it from the command position as opposed to
that gives him a bonding moment at the end with Wedge. Sure. And you have kind of a passing of the baton there because Wedge is getting ready to retire.
Okay.
You could do something like that. So Wedge is basically giving Poe some advice on, this is how you get through this crap. Surround yourself with some good people and all this other stuff. And maybe you kill off Wedge. I don't know.
And, in our modern military, in a big enough battle, a squadron leader who would be a colonel would, if the whole squadron is being deployed, he would deploy. And even a wing commander who would be higher ranked than that would fly if the whole wing was being deployed. So it's not out of the, to see, colonels and maybe, the lowest level of generals fly on occasion. Yeah. Higher than that, they probably would be, stuck in a chair. But even then, you could set the strategy for the flight and go out with your squadron and still, have someone, your subordinate, sitting there to coordinate on the, from the behind. There's something to being in the front, leading and inspiring your men. So, he could still be out there.
Yeah. And you guys to Michael's point about, using Wedge. Wedge gets a lot of time in the EU, and over the years, especially with the X-Wing series from Michael Stackpole, Wedge has grown to be a very popular character, and he's had a lot to do in the books. So it would make total sense to me for him to have a bigger role. I was actually surprised that he didn't. And I was thinking, well, maybe Dennis Lawson said no, maybe, because he's got his own acting career he's been doing all these years. Maybe he doesn't want to come back to Star Wars for some reason. But then they didn't even try. There wasn't even any kind of discussion that, yeah, we asked him, we invited him, we wanted to get Wedge in there, and Dennis didn't want to do it. Hold on. Where's Wedge? That was my whole thing throughout the entire trilogy. Where's Wedge? Where's Wedge Antilles? You know,
Yeah, I would have loved to see more of him too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question. So, if what would you guys have thought about if there was kind of an I didn't want to take Leia. Part of the other things I didn't want to take Leia out of the story with the stupid space Mary
Yeah.
Poppins crap.
Yeah.
But I didn't have her do a whole lot otherwise. What would you think if it instead was that Poe was, did remain in the field and Leia was the one sending his, that kept on being like, get out, deploy deploy, you got to get out there. She's the one sending them to their deaths.
Yeah.
And Poe's kind of like, I mean, he knows his job and everything, but
So,
it's like,
here's your growth moment for Poe. And you're working with real life circumstances because Carrie Fisher died. And now you don't have Princess Leia for the third movie. And instead of doing this Frankenstein's monster thing with footage that was already shot, your growth moment for Poe is Leia getting killed in that last battle.
Yeah, that's
and that, because we don't have Carrie anymore. We have to do this. And so, digital face, whatever, and that scene, maybe we do that in the reshoots, and she becomes the big, you're talking about sacrifice. She becomes the big sacrifice, and maybe you don't have to kill off Luke, because you kill off Luke and Leia in the same movie, you're gonna have a riot. But that, to me, I think would be the thing where, that could be a growth moment for Poe as well.
What did you guys think about Luke still dying?
It's the mentor. The mentor dying is part of the whole hero's journey thing, but I think it's more effective if it's connected to a hero on the journey. So it does that. Does his death impact Rey? Does it impact Ben? Whose journey is most affected by his death? I guess that would, the answer to that question would be whether or not the death would be necessary in the film.
One thing that I wasn't able to do, and I thought was a decent moment in the original, is when Force projection Luke showed up and had a moment with Leia and C-3PO, for example, even though it wasn't really him there. So I kind of regret that I wasn't able to have a moment with him and Leia.
You mean when he handed his sister her ex-husband's trinket from his former girlfriend? That scene,
right?
How did that work? If he's a force projection, he's not really there.
They faded away afterwards. Long after Luke died, they did fade away.
Dumb. In something else, they mentioned that.
Yeah,
like the novelization.
He didn't really give them to her.
Well, see, and the funny thing, with Force Awakens, I was talking to Alan Dean Foster about it, and one of the things that he ran into, not just with this book, he runs into this sometimes with other scripts, if he's adapting, doing the novelization and whatnot. He says sometimes he runs into the challenge where something happens on screen, something happens in the movie, and now he's got to figure out a way in the book to explain it and make it work. And he said he had to do quite a bit of that in Force Awakens, because he did the novelization for the first one.
Good luck to him, man. He's a better man than I.
Yeah.
All of those novels are basically, what's the issues that people had with the films? How do we throw a line into the novel to fix it?
Yeah. Well, and Foster was talking like he was sitting there thinking, I gotta make this work, because it doesn't sound like he was getting a whole lot of direction from Lucasfilm.
They're not paying me to fail.
It's Alan Dean Foster. You don't give Alan Dean Foster very many notes.
Yeah, I guess not, eh?
In
this case, sounds like he wanted more.
You could pay him, maybe. It was nice. It was nice that they finally got that resolved, but Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's. I'm going to sum up. I for myself, Cam did way better than I thought anybody could possibly do. So I'm kind of surprised and pleased. But that ends our salvaging the unsalvageable, our first episode. Who knows? We may do this with other things. I don't think we can pick something that is as unsalvageable as this movie. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm sure we can. Maybe we can find other ones for the future. Next week we are going to be. We're going to look at next episode. We're going to look at doing the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is 3 reviews of media, each falling into one of those categories. Before we go, we can't forget. We have the joke of the day, and with the length of this episode, I think I'll do a couple of jokes. So, if you can get the this one here. All right. Now, what do you call Star Wars spoilers? What do you call Star Wars spoilers? Anybody?
I don't know. What do you call Star Wars
WikiLeaks,
spoilers?
Right? You get it? Because WikiLeaks is like the leaks, and then Wookiees are in Star Wars, the big hairy guys, right? Everyone knows that?
Yeah.
WikiLeaks. All right, good. Here's a good one. This will fit in with what we were talking about.
Did WikiLeaks add a rainbow to their logo for the month?
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Check. Where do Star Wars rebel officers eat? Where do Star Wars rebel officers eat?
The space bar?
No, the Admiral snack bar. Because Admiral Akbar, right? Snack bar sounds like snack bar. Akbar, get it?
That one actually got me. That was funny.
All right, last one. Why are people at Star Wars conventions so happy? Why are people at Star Wars conventions so happy?
Because they're forced to be?
No. Good try, though. Because of the Endor fans. Get it? Endor fans, because Endor is where the Wookiees are from, or the little short guys. And endorphins are what makes you happy, right? Like endorphins, get it?
Yeah.
All right. Good. Well, I hope you enjoyed those last jokes. Thanks everybody for stopping by. And,
thanks Disgruntled Jedi and Jason for helping make this much more interesting, because otherwise I would have lost my voice earlier and just felt bad about not talking to anyone.
Not a problem.
So I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's it for our show.
I do have something I want to plug.
Oh, wait. He's got something he wants to plug. Hold on.
I got to plug. This is important. This is important stuff I got to plug.
Put him on screen.
He broke it.
Hold on. You're in my outro. Okay, what do you got to plug before? We'll have to redo the outro.
Tomorrow's show.
Tomorrow, your show. Okay, go ahead.
I am interviewing Washington Post columnist David Ignatius about his new fiction book. It's a spy thriller book.
Interesting.
David Ignatius is very well known. Middle East, CIA, Washington Post. So yeah, tomorrow.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else got anything they want to plug?
It's at 1 Eastern, right, Jason?
Yes, 1 p.m. Eastern. He's on in the second hour. We're going to be talking about his book.
So check it out. Spy thrillers. Those are I like those. Those are in my area. I'll have to check it out. All right, let's try outro again.
Sorry.
No problem. Technical issues.
I don't hear anything. You can turn the sound on.
Yeah, nothing. Okay, that's about what we'd expect.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for coming by.
Good night.